Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Curious Owlbear, and I'm here to explore everything Dungeons & Dragons. So, your adventurers are heading into a sprawling, scorched desert that's going to take them months to cross. I've got you covered with 10 of my favorite random encounters for deserts. If you're going to use any of the following random encounters, make sure you like, subscribe, and let me know which ones you're going with in the comments. As the group travels across the crest of a large sand dune, their keen eyes spot movement at the base of the dune. They move closer to investigate, seeing a pile of venomous snakes writhing around over the remains of a skeleton wrapped in a traveling cloak. The group may even sense a bit of magic coming from within the writhing mass of snakes, which will lure them in. I've mentioned this in previous videos, but I tend to love random encounters where the players know something bad is going to happen to their character, but they're inclined to do it anyway for the hope of a reward. This type of encounter will likely not yield a particularly great reward, perhaps a +1 weapon or a utility item, but it's also not an extremely deadly encounter. After days of trudging through hot, dry sands that stretch as far as the eye can see in any direction, one of your party members spots a small grouping of palm trees on the horizon. The group feels a slight wave of relief at the thought of spending an afternoon in the shade with plenty of water to drink. They hurry towards the trees, but coming into sight of the clear blue pool of water, they see a gathering of many animals. A good survival check might indicate the possibility of attracting predators with so many animals nearby. I like to mix in simple encounters like this, as it may define how your group decides to travel or where they decide to camp. Although it seems simple, these are the types of decisions that really put your players into their characters' shoes, so they feel the hot sun on their backs and the relief of walking into the cool shade. Near dusk, a large flock of multicolored, beautiful birds takes flight from the trees surrounding the oasis. Your adventurers have probably never seen such beautiful, exotic birds in their lifetime. While they're not large enough to be considered worthy of a meal, a domesticated bird will be capable of repeating simple phrases. This is another simple encounter, but it has a completely different feeling and outcome. Your adventurers may choose to simply marvel at the birds and move on, or they may try to catch one, which could become the highlight of the session. Plus, it's always fun to offer encounters where players can interact with nature in a non-hostile environment. Your group has found a small pathway of cracked, solid earth that winds between steep sand dunes rising high on all sides. After walking for several hours along this path, the ground slowly begins to shake, the tremors rising in intensity. The group hears the sounds of fast approaching hoofed feet and sees sand lifting into the air around the bend. They'll be quickly overrun by the stampede of wild horses unless they act fast enough. This is another non-combat encounter, but it could be extremely deadly depending upon how you decide to handle it as the DM. I would recommend this encounter for low-level parties, as the fly spell or other similar types of magic could make this a completely trivial experience. If your adventurers are successful in avoiding the stampede, they'll soon see what the stampede is fleeing. A flash flood. The heavy rains last night resulted in floodwaters that now rush towards your group. The adventurers will once again need to find a way to higher ground without slipping on the steep sand dunes around them. An adventurer who gets swept away might not drown, but may be washed several miles away from the rest of the group. This is a fun and quick way to get your party to split up, and then you can do other nefarious things to them. I like to keep a few random encounters like this in my back pocket for when my players really tick me off. But, jokes aside, this can be another interesting encounter that will really bring them into this desert environment. As the party crests a particularly large sand dune, they come upon an interesting sight. Poking through the sand in front of them are the pointed tips of carved stone spires. The spires rise barely a few feet out of the sand, but their construction is clearly of the hobgoblin variety. The spires seem to cover a couple of miles in front of the party, inviting your adventurers to find a way into the city, which seems to have been revealed and then buried by thousands of years of erosion. This is an example of a random encounter that could become the main storyline for the next several sessions. Occasionally, I think it's interesting to have your PCs stumble upon a quest rather than have an NPC bring them into it. This gives your party a chance to decide exactly how and when they want to approach the quest. The party moves in to investigate one of the spires when suddenly a wide cavern opens under them as the sand gives way. They slide down a small shaft, landing roughly on top of a pile of constrictor snakes. They'll briefly catch a glimpse of the dark tunnel leading off into the city as the snakes close in around them. Now, if your adventurers are mid-level or higher, this will likely be a fairly trivial encounter. But this is the type of situation that can send a chill down your players' spines as their characters feel the smooth scales of the snakes wrapping tightly around them. These non-combat desert encounters can be a lot of fun for your party, but now, playtime is over. As your party explores a small ruined building, several creatures suddenly blink into existence on the ceiling and walls, dropping onto your unsuspecting adventurers. They lash out with large venomous fangs, brutally slashing at the group. Phase spiders can make for a truly chaotic experience as they blink in and out of the ethereal plane where your players can't see or hear them. Additionally, they have a pretty strong poison for a low-level creature, so this could be a deadly encounter depending upon their numbers. Your party travels past a grouping of tall rocks buried in the sand in a small circle. As the group wanders by, a warm breeze begins to surround them as several air elementals take form. It seems that these primordial creatures were tasked with the protection of this ancient shrine to the gods of the elemental plane of air. The ancient protectors will surround the party, attacking the intruders. Air elementals can be very interesting enemies as they hover around the battlefield, hucking whirlwinds around. They're extremely at home in the hot, windy desert environment. Again, depending upon your party's level and the number of air elementals you use, this could be an extremely deadly encounter. Now, this video is meant to assist DMs with low to mid-level parties, but I simply could not pass up the chance to mention one creature in particular, so I'm throwing in an honorable mention. As the party travels amid the tops of ancient stone spires that rise slightly above the ground, the sands in front of the adventurers suddenly start to sink, forming a hole. Creeping closer to investigate, the party is surprised as a massive purple worm blasts from the depths of the hole, engaging your party. The purple worm was attracted to the magical items your party carries, as it has consumed most of the magic within the city over the last several decades. The purple worm is an extremely fun monster as it hones in on magical items from a distance. Since it's driven to consume any magic it comes across, the ruins of an ancient city is the perfect environment for this creature. If your party is lower level, this will be an extremely deadly fight as the purple worm has a challenge rating of 15. But if you think your party can handle it, this fight will be extremely memorable. Finally, as your party is traversing the desert, a thin, wispy cloud begins to rush down from the sky on a strong gust of air. The cloud gets closer, and your party begins to make out the shape of a tall, attractive, muscular blue figure riding the wind. The figure drops to the ground near the party and shouts, "Welcome, welcome, welcome! I'm so glad to finally have some new servants for my manor. Just put down your weapons, you won't be needing those anymore." Your party will probably decide not to serve this genie, and so the fight will be on. The genie will do everything it can to preserve the lives of those it perceives as its new servants, but it is definitely capable of using its scimitar and innate spellcasting to TPK your party. The genie is also capable of sending whirlwinds around the battlefield, effectively crowd controlling your PCs. Now, I love the genie as their outlook on servitude is extremely different from any other creature in D&D. They treat their servants with compassion and kindness, and are not opposed to serving others. While this encounter can be extremely deadly, it depends on your personal outlook on the genie and how you use them. Those were 10 of my favorite random encounters for deserts. Hopefully, they'll get you started in thinking about some different types of settings within this beautiful environment. Perhaps they even gave you some ammunition for your next TPK. If so, Let me know what you're thinking in the comments. Until next time, stay curious, adventurers.